Welcome back, everyone. Are you ready for a magical adventure? Just as these two were locked in an epic battle, the old man, totally oblivious, picked up a bag of candy, and suddenly a crisp crunching sound filled the air. No, let me go. That's right, today's proud dragon is not to be messed with. Eating human food with a human tongue has become her greatest delight since her resurrection. No wonder she's in no rush to return to her true form. And just as the monk recited a mantra, change the immortal and protect the spirit, Lu Lai finally found her courage and held her ground. Jiangji is the name humans gave to the proud, which also symbolizes invincibility. No wonder the monk was surprised. But what amazed everyone more was what the proud dragon saw upon opening her eyes. Come on, let me help you. Alright, Lu Lai promised to buy her 10 pumpkin candies, and only then did the proud dragon finally calm down. Through the monk's introduction, it turned out that the old man was actually her deceased master. But as for Granny Luli's magical tools, the monk said that's not the main issue. The real treasure lies atop Mount Nifosh. Keep in mind that Mount Nifosh and Mount Babud are worlds apart. By the time Lu Lai gets her hands on those magical tools, it might be too late. At this moment, the blind wizard was already up to no good again, and guess who was in those sights? The king. Never seen such an embarrassing spirit. Days ago she lurked in a well, bloodthirsty. Now she's like a chick. After being immobilized and thrown onto the ground, her enemies, while not directly killed by her hand, had managed to diffuse her anger. As a result, not only did her appearance need no censorship, but her powers had weakened to the point of being utterly helpless. But upon hearing about the 8-foot demon responsible for the downfall of the kind and noble army, it was like a big tree falling from the sky. Luli's hair stood on end not only because the 8-footer had shown up like a robber, but also because she noticed the cursed talisman at the site. Keep in mind that no matter how powerful spirits are, they are just solitary souls, but if they are manipulated, the risk multiplies. Suddenly, just at that moment, the king appeared, scolding Lu Lai and her companion for openly defying royal orders. He also suspected someone was secretly pulling the strings. Little did he know, the real puppeteer was his legal wife, the prince's birth mother, the esteemed Lady Zhang Dan. In asking for help from the officials, Lu Lai thought indignantly, but knew it was hard to expose herself. How could she beat the actual mastermind? She only sought Luli's return to protect her son and husband after the king was harmed. Meanwhile, the true mastermind was behind the scenes directing the blind wizard to ensure the prince's life was taken in 7 days. And as for the day of the attack, Lu Lai had guessed it rather unexpectedly. Floral cabinet. Floral cabinet. It turned out the talisman bore traces of being burned. The runes were even more uniquely written in furnace ashes. Plus, it was the day when a fire silenced all. The 8-footer was fueled by the flames. And the day when the kind king was harmed. Just happened to be a fiery mischief day, proving the 8-footer only strikes on scorching hot days. The next fiery day of intense heat arrives tomorrow. Mark your calendars. It's Bingwu Day. The king, without hesitation, restored the silver-armored official's position and appointed Lu Lai as the royal optician, granting the right to face the king directly. Before long, it was the following night. The king and prince were dressed to impress, while Lu Lai and the proud dragon stood on either side, and the center was filled. On the ash lay the prince's clothes and a water ball with sticks, obviously a trap set up. And as for the capturing cage, it was that special patterned paper overhead, known as the iron net, complemented by 6 scrolls engraved with runes forming the infamous Near Evil formation. As the clock tolled, a gigantic footprint first appeared in the ash, followed by a second and a third. Meanwhile, the blind wizard frantically cast spells, muttering, as drum beats intensified, footprints grew larger and more grandeur. This left the king and prince looking pale as ghosts, but when the 6 in the water bowl began to spin, it signaled Luli's moment to close the net, although the talismans began to wave wildly. Through the gaps in the talismans, they could only see the 8-footer revealing its true form, and it was clear to see it was struggling mightily, demonstrating the formidable power of the Near Evil formation. Run quickly. At this, the proud dragon immediately pulled out a tiny dagger, which somehow transformed into a celestial blade as she twirled her body. And at that moment, the proud dragon even activated her dragon mode. But she couldn't afford to be reckless. She pierced right into the center of the rune with that strike. While the release of the Dragon Pearl seemed to give the 8-footer no chance to counterattack, the Dragon Pearl had its limits. Not to mention, behind the 8-footer lurked a blind wizard who could sense something was off. And with just a mere adjustment to the incantation, the 8-footer was suddenly back to full power. In fact, it only took one move to send the proud dragon flying, and the early breach in the rune transformed into the weakest point of entry. Just as the 8-footer was about to break through completely, the proud dragon suddenly recalled something a monk had whispered before her departure. The Dragon Pearl is the nemesis of the 8-footer, but to truly obliterate it, one must exhaust all of the energy from the Dragon Pearl in order to achieve the goal. That's indeed correct for the mighty proud dragon. The Dragon Pearl was her eternal source of life. Once it was destroyed, so too would her life come to an end. So what was the proud dragon supposed to choose at this very moment? One might wonder. Suddenly, the girl glimpsed the future woman on her deathbed, struggling in bed. And that woman was none other than the Lady of Destiny herself, who was clearly feeling very unwell at that moment. After some contemplation, the girl chose to ask, but she had no clue as to what it really meant. Lu Lai said nothing more, instead signaling to retreat to the sides. However, neither of them paid attention to the presence of the young lady who had a mole on her nose while they were backing away. She looked anxious, and the Lady of Destiny said she had been dreaming of an ugly spirit lately. At first, the malevolent spirit merely stood by, silently observing. But as the dreams increased in frequency, the spirit began to manifest itself upon her, even spewing forth large amounts of black liquid that left her gasping and waking in disgust. This left Lu Lai in a whirlwind of confusion, because the black liquid indicated something unclean was nearby. But whether she looked through chicken feet or random things, there was not a single sign of abnormality. So the only possible place left was the pillow on the bedding. Can I take a look there? Luckily, little was in the bedding, and Lu Lai quickly zeroed in on the pillow. As she placed her hand upon it, a rush of cold air hit her instantly. Without a moment to spare, she quickly unleashed her auras and began to rummage, eventually uncovering the source of her nightmares. An ominous presence of a sinister black skull. But at that moment, Lu Lai had yet to grasp the gravity of the situation. The dangers of a curse typically took